Greetings again, Botwaters! If you're wondering why the title is Real Top 100 and we're only starting back from this break at number 126, there are a ton of 2- and 3-part episodes from here to the top of the charts. And if you condense them down into single entries, we're just now starting the real Top 100 storylines. Thanks for joining me on Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, the show where we rank every live-action episode of Star Trek. I'm your host, Dustin Wing. Crash landing at 126. Harry Kim suffers for decades. Or timeless. Harry and Chakotay open the episode finding a Voyager popsicle. But the suffering for Voyager really starts when Seven learns the hard way that synthahol gets her really drunk really fast. The bulk of the episode is told in the past tense, with Harry not being able to let go of a way to get off Gilligan's Island that never quite pans out in simulations, as Renegade, Chakotay, and Kim are trying to put right what once went wrong, before Captain LaForge can catch them, with LeVar Burton doing double duty, both in the director's chair and as actor. Their ultimate goal is to use a classified crank-prank time phone to call Harry in the past and change Voyager's fate, some great 90s TV CGI, in a heartbreaking plot that gets murky in the end, as Kim gets a log from his alternate future self, explaining why he changed the entire timeline for the sake of Voyager and its crew. Yet again proving Harry Kim's fate is to suffer in every version of reality. Tying real-world conspiracies to Star Trek at 125, just a weather balloon. Or Little Green Men. The often mentioned but yet unseen cousin Gala tries to set Quark up by giving him a brand new shuttle that's rigged for speed on a Ferengi shuttle. Nog bringing up Sisko's last trip to the past and inserting himself into history is the first bit of self-actualization in the episode. While taking Nog to Starfleet Academy, some technobabble sees them end up in Hangar 18 as the canon explanation of the 1947 Roswell crash. Turns out Odo came along for the ride because why not? Space hippies grow up into army generals, and Nurse, hopeful as can be, gives us a redux of the Strange New World's classic Trek motto. This episode is pure fun all the way around. There's nothing to not like about it. Cheeky, yet casual time travel is casual. Getting caught in a pickle with a dick at 124. Photons firing photons. Or Message in a Bottle. Another purely fun episode, but nets the Doctor some much-needed experience outside his programming. Voyager uses an alien relay network that spans most of the galaxy to send the Doctor onto a Starfleet ship in the Alpha Quadrant in one of many let's contact the outside world Gilligan's Island moments. Which, if you've seen any episode of that show, you'll know the plan goes horribly sideways, as the Doctor's program is sent to explain Voyager's situation, only to find an entire Starfleet crew of this NX registry Prometheus unalived by a group of Romulans stealing it. He gets to play Die Hard on a starship with the help of fellow Mark II EMH, played by Andy Dick at the beginning of his acting career, and not the husk of a human being he's reportedly become today. But here, he and Picardo play really nicely off each other, as the improved hologram with no experience and the experienced hologram stuck in an unfamiliar setting, and fumble their way through stopping the Romulans' plot and turning the ship back over to Starfleet. It was nice, almost smack dab in the middle of Voyager's run, to get an episode in the Alpha Quadrant dealing with standard Trek fare, while finally, 4.5 seasons in, letting the people back home know that Voyager's still out there. I would describe this episode as pure fun, with a purpose. getting a wake-up call from the past at 1:23. Hailing frequencies closed. Or the sound of her voice. Here's one I would not describe as pure fun, especially not for the voice in the dark that war-weary Defiant crew go far out of their way to try and rescue. This is a very different down-tempo formula that works especially well as a penultimate episode of the penultimate season, breaking up the Dominion War arc. We get to know our main characters a little better as they take turns calming this lone surviving captain on a Class L or barely habitable planet over comms, reassuring her someone's out there. The B-plot back on the station sees Jake trying to get in on a not-so-nefarious activity by a local entrepreneur, and Odo is distracted by his recent start of a relationship with Kira. The main plot ends tragically, which isn't often a thing in Trek, as what they find is a time displacement of a few years on the planet they head to, and this person has been dead for a while. Which leads to an Irish wake where there's a bit of foreshadowing that Jadzia is not going to be with us going forward in the next episode. A solidly interesting episode of DS9 that pushes your emotional buttons. Playing Clue at 1:22. Yeah, she did it. Or Necessary Evil. We open on a dark and stormy night, usually not a great start to a story as Picard once pointed out. But as Quark gets enlisted by a woman on Bajor to find a box hidden on the station during the occupation, curiosity will always get the better of Quark, and in this case, leaves him clinging to life by a thread for looking at the list of hidden names. Which means Odo now has to play Whodunit, which all ties back to another murder years before, when the box was hidden in the first place and Kira was Odo's prime suspect. After a drawn-out investigation, in the end it turns out Kira had been guilty of murder all those years ago to protect the Bajoran resistance. It'll take him some time, but even knowing the truth, he still has a place in his heart for Kira. A side note, this is the first time Rom starts feeling like the Rom we know going forward. Before this, he's been portrayed simply as your average cutthroat Ferengi. An episode that keeps you guessing till the very end. Doing some time shenanigans at 1:21, Grand Trek Auto. Or Carpenter Street. Following the tradition of most Treks going back to or near the production date of the show, Archer is tasked by Daniels with cleaning up some Xindi in 2004 Earth, trying to wipe out the population with a bioweapon. Recurring Trek actor and horror movie legend Leland Orser shows the worst side of 21st century humanity as he helps the reptilians by kidnapping people with certain blood types for their research. And his performance here is a lot of what turns this B-list buddy cop show into a high point in Trek history. Even though the time travel is completely casual and the message is the 21st century kinda sucks, there's something about Archer ordering from a greasy spoon drive-thru and T'Pol being the butt of a vegetarian joke that really works to add a few points to what might have been an otherwise unremarkable script, if not in a sci-fi setting. Building a coalition of the willing at 1:18, 1:19, and 1:20, Prelude to War. Or Babel 1, United, and the Einar. Here's one of those three-parters clogging up the works and keeping some episodes out of the actual top 100. There's a lot going on and a lot of new lore to like, along with the strong continuation of the friendship between Archer and Shran. The intro of the first part of Babel 1 sees our favorite Blueskin getting his ship pulverized, seemingly by the Tellarites. Archer gets involved and starts the long road journeying to Babel, to start his great role in history that Daniels has been grooming him for all these years, playing mediator and bringing races together. Indeed, it's this three-parter that truly starts the wheels of the Federation in motion, and why this collection of episodes finds themselves quite so high up on this list of Trek. Turns out it's the Romulans just trying to muddy the waters all along, with an early holoship that can look any way they want it to. With no real crew, and when Enterprise follows a supposed Andorian warp trail, Reed and Tucker end up stuck on the craft. Which, into the next episode, will navigate a labyrinth trying to kill them, all the while trying to slow down the ship so Enterprise can retrieve them. While back aboard, the Tellarites and Andorians go after each other, and Shran loses his current love interest, which forces an almost amok time but better battle of friends, as Johnny steps in for the Tellarite ambassador in a ritual matter of honor, to hold the fragile alliance against the Romulan holoship together. After a careful reading of disqualification rules, Archer gets the Alliance back on track, and it's revealed whoever is piloting the ship remotely is Andorian, or more precisely, Einar, a race of blind but heavily telepathic albino Andorians that will later spawn one of Starfleet's greatest engineers. But for now, Archer and Shran, after being deceived by the Einar, figure out this is someone controlling the drone craft against their will, and use the person's sister to build their own control device. To up the stakes at the end, there's a second drone ship, and after some decent CGI battle sequences, the drones are destroyed and the Romulan involvement is never fully exposed. This was to be foreshadowing of the coming Romulan War if Enterprise had gotten a Season 5. There's also a subplot throughout these three about T'Pol finally being unmarried, and it giving Trip feelings that are hard for a Florida man to handle. He ends this block by asking for a short-lived transfer to the nearly ready NX-02. These episodes by themselves, as scripts versus other television, are only pretty good. But there's so much Trek lore that gets filled in here, it deserves a bit of a bump in these rankings. It also perfectly complements Enterprise's post-9/11 themes, building a coalition of aggrieved parties to stop an imminent threat. And in the end, a road to war with the Romulans will lead to a road to peace, for what will become the Federation.
Computer. That program is available.
Thanks, Major. Thanks, Major.
This is the Federation starship Prometheus.
Thanks, Major.
Access to tactical data requires Level 4 clearance. Initiating decoupling sequence.
Thanks, Major.
Specify target.
Thanks, Major.
Communications access requires Level 4 clearance or above.
Thanks, Major.
Transfer complete. Auto separation in 10 seconds.
Thanks, Major.
Hull breach on deck 10. Vessel approaching, bearing 184, Mark 7.
Thanks, Major.
Warning, warp core breach in 60 seconds. Warp core breach in 30 seconds.
Thanks, Major.